Welcome back to another episode of the Tiga Tactics Podcast, show about self-defense for civilians by civilians. We discuss all things personal protection, including martial arts, combat sports, and street combatives. Our resident martial arts nerds, MANs, include co-founder of Tiga Tactics and holder of black belts in 9 different styles, Dr. Conrad Bui.
Hello, everybody.
And we don't have Patrick for this episode, but I'm your other co-host. Now I'm retired Army Special Forces soldier and champion obstacle course racing athlete, Evan Ultra-OCR man Perperis.
Wow,
So
officially retired now?
officially retired as of a couple weeks ago.
Oh, all right.
So today's episode, we're going to be talking about, is competition necessary for martial arts, or is it necessary to improve, essentially? So before we get into kind of like the nuance there, because as I feel like with every topic we discuss, there's a lot of nuance. I feel like we should probably define competition. So how would you define competition, Conrad?
You know, I, I think that's an important discussion because there's a lot of competition. I suppose there's internal competition where you're just competing with yourself and trying to improve on maybe your own personal goals and your own personal benchmarks. There's also competition within a class. For example, maybe if you're sparring with a buddy or buddies and you're trying to be better than them just in the class. And then there might be organized competitions like tournaments. So I think regardless of whichever art you're doing, whether that's a very non-competitive art like Aikido, for example, although there is Aikido competitions, if you're in a system that doesn't compete per se, I suppose there's always some sort of competition, even if that's internal competition. Very interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's go with the common definition of like competing in tournaments outside of your school. Let's start off with there and kind of look at that first. Because I think with all of those, competition is going to breed excellence. Like the more if you're for a lot of people, if I'm comparing myself against someone, I have something to strive for, I have something to shoot for. It essentially makes my goals more measurable. And when we're looking at goals, the SMART acronym, what specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and a time. Uh, that's like how people tend to form goals. I think it makes
Mhm.
it more measurable, even if you're just internally. So let's look at, is competition necessary outside of your dojo, your gym, your training center, whatever we want to call it. Let's go with that. What
All
are you?
right. Yes and no. You know, I wish there was one answer for everybody. I think the answer would lie within that person because nowadays, many martial arts almost there isn't one martial art I can think of that does not have some type of competition or at a tournament, a category for that art to participate in some manner. Uh, so I think it's up to the individual whether they choose to go into an organized tournament, something outside of their school. I'm looking at like from every art. There's even like I mentioned before, Aikido has competition. It's very interesting to see their competitive martial arts. It's very interesting to watch as well too. Everything from Tai Chi. If you do Tai Chi, there's forms you can compete in as well as push hands. Some very esoteric Chinese arts like Bagua and Xingyi. There's competition for them. And of course, the common ones we know, like in the Olympics, judo, boxing, taekwondo. Those are arts that have a lot of I guess it's very popular as far as competitive arts. So it would depend on the individual. I would say if you choose not to compete, that's your choice totally. Yeah, so if you choose to compete, that's kind of an individual thing. That being said, if you do choose to compete, there's probably a venue for your art somewhere to go to. Uh, but if you do choose to compete, let's go back to the if you choose not to compete. There's some martial arts out there that they'll say, "Oh, our art is way too dangerous. If we competed, we would kill people." Yeah, sure. There's certain rules in all competitions. I'm not sure of any competition that allows like eye gouging, biting. Um, there are competitions that allow groin strikes. Actually, when I was competing in the open tournaments in the Midwest,
Really?
allowed groin strikes. And so, but still, they're outside of eye gouging and biting. I've never seen uh, any arts that allow those two things.
Yeah, there's all
Uh,
sorts of obviously long-term problems you can get with like losing an eye, which is terrible. And then like
right,
infections, biting, right? That's you're breaking skin at that point. And
right,
mouths are
absolutely.
dirty.
Absolutely. But beyond that, and many arts, of course, don't allow groin strikes. So beyond those three things, uh, you can pretty much do whatever you want. If you wanted to do some of this demock stuff, this pressure point striking stuff, and you think it works, go for it. If you think, but yeah, I get there's this population out there that say, oh no, if I competed, people would be dying, and I don't know, would they?
Not that UFC is the perfect example, but as a general rule, if you don't see something being used in the octagon, you need to question if it's valid, right? Because if a lot of those if a lot of these crazy moves worked, you'd see it. Someone would do it over the
Mhm.
last 30 years of Ultimate Fighting. You'd see someone do that move.
I
Um,
agree.
and it may not be common, but you'd see it at least once. So
I agree. And one thing that competition did do, and we'll probably talk about this later as well too, when we go hop onto why you should compete. But back to the people who say, "Oh, my stuff's too deadly," I would just leave a trail of carnage everywhere I went. Uh, to those people, I would say I used to be in that camp. When I trained some of these traditional arts, I would think, oh man, if we did this, their arm would be broken. If we did this, their legs would be broken. Like, for example, this is very common in many arts, especially Wing Chun, Jeet Kune Do, this kick to the knee. Uh,
mm,
we used to believe back in the day, because there weren't any tournaments that allowed any direct attack to the joints until MMA came around, and then we saw all these guys kicking to the knee. John Jones did it. That camp out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. I can't. The Winker John camp. They kick to the knee all the time, and I don't see a trail of busted kneecaps and like what we were sold in our school, busted knees all over the place. You'll see that in MMA, people doing side kicks to the knees, and it's not blowing out everybody's knees like we thought it did. And so sometimes we think what we think is very deadly and damaging. It turns out it wasn't as deadly or as damaging as we thought once you pressure tested into the ring like that.
yeah. Let's talk about why, like some of the benefits of competing, why you should compete.
Right. Okay. So we hop over from the side that didn't compete uh, to the side to compete, but maybe also the side that doesn't compete. Just hopping back over to that side again. Some people just are not into competition, and that's
Yeah.
cool too. And some people might think it's a little violent to compete, and that's cool as well too. So I think if you don't compete, don't feel like you have to compete, and that we're going to hop onto the side that you should compete, and the people who do compete, you shouldn't look at that side of the people who do not compete and go, well, they're just losers, or they don't want to test themselves. They're testing themselves in different ways that the side who does compete might not understand or respect or appreciate. So I think it's hard to have appreciation and respect on both sides.
Yeah, I've competed in a couple of things, but not I wouldn't say I compete regularly or even that much. And a lot of it has to do with available time, and then I'm still running obstacle course races, so I don't want to get, I'm a little more cautious about, training hard with people I don't necessarily know.
Right.
Um, and that's more money, right? I'm already spending a lot on martial arts, right? Like there's another competition expenses plus another travel expenses on top of all the other race travel I
Uh,
do. It's just like
right.
It turns into a lot. It turns into
It's a commitment. It's a
yeah.
huge commitment. And I tell the fighters at my gym, it's a labor of love.
Yes.
You know, odds are you're not going to get rich, competing in Muay Thai or BJJ or martial arts competition or even outside of martial arts competitions, other competitions. It's all that training, all that work, all that effort, as well as the stress that you put on yourself going
Right.
through training camp to get to that point. That's a lot of work, and it is a labor of love.
So let's talk about some of the positive benefits. So
All right,
why should people compete?
right. Let's look at just the overall the progression of martial arts. I believe that competition improves martial arts, and we just talked about it a little while back with the UFC. It's a big proving ground for what we can put in high percentage techniques versus low percentage techniques as far as it goes into the octagon, and some of that can also be translated into the street as
Mm.
well too. So like we've talked about that kick to the knee. Well, you know what I learned, I was like, someone told me it took like 6 pounds of pressure to blow out the knee, and I would think, where did they get that number from? And I remember when I went to chiropractic school, I tried looking up that number, I couldn't find it. It depends on a lot of different factors when someone blows out their ACL or MCL or something like that. There's a lot of different factors going in. There's many vectors of force as well too. It's
Mm.
hard to determine exactly how many pounds of pressure it takes to break that knee. But apparently, in the UFC, when we actually see knee strikes applied, there's only been one instance I saw where someone's knee did buckle and it affected the outcome of that fight. But that fighter wasn't just limping away and didn't just fall to the ground. He was compromised for the rest of the fight. But that was like one out of maybe dozens and dozens of strikes to the knees that I witnessed and looked at from just my own casual watching of the UFC. So
I think
I
I've
think
seen like more shin breaks in the UFC where like someone checks a kick real hard and like their shin
right,
fractures.
right, yes,
And some of those are
exactly,
awful, by the way. It's like
yeah.
for some reason I can watch like the most awful videos of like real world violence, but when someone breaks their shin bone and then goes to step on it and their foot like folds in half, that one gets me. I'm like, ugh, ugh.
Yeah,
I can't,
and then of course they have to show it in slow motion.
yeah, I can't. That one, I for some reason I just can't. That one, like, yeah, I've
Yeah, and
watched so many awful things, but that one still grosses me out.
yeah, and the worst thing is I can't look away even when they show it in slow motion. It's just so sickening. Like that's just human nature to just look at that and go, "That's nasty," but you still don't turn away.
Yeah, yeah, that is
Uh,
true.
All right. And so I think competition actually improves the art. And for sure, like arts that are competition based, like for example, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, uh, most schools are very competition based. You know, we train in a gi, we pull guard, we're doing all these funky barambolos and De La Hiva guards and these new K guards and X guards and all this. And yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say that's street stuff, but if we're just looking at that as a sport, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has evolved several times since I started.
Mm.
It's gone through many phases, and each phase just makes that art that much better. And so I think if it's a sport-based art like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, Taekwondo, and especially MMA has gone through so many changes that it's exciting to watch for me. I'm always like, in any of these arts, I'm always wondering where's that next evolution going to take place? When, where, and what will that evolution be like? And that's what makes it exciting. Some of the arts that do not compete, like traditional arts, for example, they get solidified, they become codified, and they don't grow that much because they're just stuck in that time warp right there, that picture in time, and you know you're not supposed to change it anyways. And so
Yeah.
I think the evolution of the art to me is to me, it's personally exciting. And I believe it does make the art better. Yes, it is a sport. Like, for example, Taekwondo in the Olympics, they're jumping around, throwing those round kicks. Of course, you're never going to use those in a fight. But there's a lot of things in wrestling you might not use in a fight as well either. So we're just looking at it as just the sport in that art itself there.
Yeah. So the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gym I train at now, I specifically chose one that was a little more sportive, competition focused. Not
Hmm.
necessarily because I want to compete, but because I found that a lot of the sport guys train harder and more consistently and are a little more focused. So I feel like feel like sometimes you'll get better reps there because people are like, oh, well, I got a competition in 2 months. I gotta hunker down and start training and really work on my technique. And I feel like that, the rising tide raises all ships analogy there. By training with them, even if I'm not competing personally, the fact that they're working to get much better has to make me better so I can train with them and kind of hold my own. So
I agree. I've trained in many jujitsu gyms, and some schools they're very competition focused, and some schools are just more casual hobby focused. Yeah, the ones that are competition focused, you get a better workout because everyone's more aggressive.
they are. They're all this is the first thing I noticed when I went to this school. I was like, oh, why is everyone? I was like, man, everyone's like real intense. I was like, um, I like to joke around, still have a good time though, because
Of
yeah,
course. So I think it's good for the art. I think it's also there's also many benefits for the person themselves. So one benefit of competing is it increases your level of commitment
hmm
to training. Of course, I mean, you've got a competition coming up in 3 months. You're going to start focusing a lot more in those 3 months than if you didn't have a competition coming up. You might be skipping classes, making excuses not to go to class. You might just be kind of dicking around a little bit in class, goofing around a little too much. And so, if you have a competition coming up, that helps you to focus and that helps you to stay committed to the art. And also, once you do compete, I really believe that experience that helps to. I tell my students every competition you do, that's like 3 months worth of training of experience that you'll get in competing. And so when you compete, you're hyper focused. You learn a lot, and from that experience, it's almost like a traumatic experience. It's really ingrained deeply in your muscle memory. What's happening and your mindset, and then also your reactions as well as your strategy and your aggressiveness. Uh, that gets kicked up to another level. That's why uh, in jujitsu, Muay Thai as well too. People who compete very regularly, they progress very quickly because it just pushes them forward that much more.
yeah. It's funny you mentioned that signing up for a competition helps focus you more. When I was first getting into fitness, that's what I would do to like keep myself motivated. I would sign up for something like a couple months out. I'd sign up for like a big race, like 2 or 3 months away, and be like, all right, well, now I got to keep working out because I already paid all this money. I don't want to show up and bomb my race. So
Right,
it
exactly.
works
Uh,
across the spectrum there.
we can also go into the other benefits of competing, which one benefit that you touched upon right there is goal setting. If you have children that compete as well too, they understand that goal setting process. Like, oh, okay, I've got a competition coming up next month. I better start focusing and maybe getting my cardio up or my conditioning up. Uh, Maybe getting better on my feet or something like that. And so it teaches not only kids, of course, adults, the basics of goal setting.
Yeah, good one. Absolutely. Excellent point.
And with that, of course, uh, once you achieve goals, even just making it to the tournament, right? I tell my students, you step on that mat, you're a winner. You just need to go out there and prove it now. So even with just getting to the tournament, that increases someone's confidence outside of the tournament. So in any competition that you enter, and whether that's martial arts related or non-martial arts related, related, excuse me, just showing up to that competition will improve your confidence. Especially kids. If you're especially if you're competing in martial arts, for example, you're going to go in there. You might get thrown. Someone smashing you from the top. Let's say if it's a jujitsu match, and they might choke you or armbar you. Or if you're doing that to someone else, of course, and you win the match, that increases your confidence quite a bit outside of the tournament. Because if you feel like you survived that, and you did good, or even if you didn't do well, you went there and you gave it all your all. That improves your confidence
Mm.
outside of the gym, outside of the mats as well too.
Any differences in opinions on the desire or requirement or the interest in competing for something like grappling, where you can go nearly 100% with minimal to no injuries, as long as you tap early enough, versus something like boxing or um, kickboxing, whatever it may be. Any kind of difference opinions on frequency of competing or should people compete, etc. Like a
Sure. Yeah.
striking
Yeah.
sport versus a grappling sport.
Right. Of course, like what you just said, grappling sports are generally safer. And of the grappling sports, I really think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the safest because wrestling and judo, when you're on your feet, you have potential to fall down and dislocate your shoulder or receive some type of shoulder injury or upper body injury, or someone takes you down. That could also cause you to have problems in your legs and things like that. So uh, grappling sports, they tend to be safer, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, in my opinion, being the safest because a lot of it is happening on the ground already. Uh, of course, striking arts like boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, those tend to be a little more risky because now we're talking about concussions and
Yeah.
concussion in children or adolescents. Or teenagers and adults, it's not a good thing. Those things are cumulative. If you're into striking, that's just the nature of the beast, and that's just something you have to accept that you're gonna get punched in the face, your brain will be rattled around, and that's just the way that sport goes. Again, it is relatively safe, but if that's your thing, go for it. I think it just depends on the individual there.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other final thoughts on competition?
Yeah, definitely. Just a couple more. I do want to say for if you're into self-defense, we talk about the fight, flight, or freeze response there. And probably the thing that we want to reduce the most, of course, is the freeze response.
Hmm.
And by competing, I believe that helps you with that freeze response because you're used to that adrenaline dump. You're used to thinking under pressure. I believe that it'll help reduce your odds of freezing up there. And one last thing, of course, personal growth. When you compete, there's personal growth. There's a saying in jujitsu that I learned, but I'm sure it's in other sports too. There's no losing, just learning. So you either win or you learn, and so that's just great for personal growth there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of great benefits for competition. I think, um, I think if you have the time, resources, money, etc., I think it's a great way to improve. It's a great way to set goals. It's a great way to, cram intense training into a short period. It's a great way to stay focused, to stay motivated, right? To giving you those goals. And if you accomplish it, then, you feel good about yourself. And if you miss your goal, you know, I know a lot of times when I've missed a goal, that's made me like double down and work harder because you're like, oh, I was so close, or like, oh, I should have done this better. Maybe I should pick up my training and like you focus more. Of course, if you set your goals too high and you completely miss, then you may have the opposite effect. But I think again that goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning. They got to be like realistic and attainable. You can't show up to be like, I'm gonna go to ADCC and win it all. Like even though you haven't won your local tournament, like maybe you should adjust those goals and
Right.
maybe before you decide you're gonna be UFC champion, you should uh, you know get a pro card or compete in your first MMA fight. Yeah, we
Absolutely.
we 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 would have guys come into the combatives gym all the time, be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be an MMA fighter." It's like, do you train regularly? And they're like, "No." And you're like, You should probably do that first." Like that's what I would do as step one. And
Hmm.
most of those guys did not stick around, but um, need a little bit of commitment, persistence there. So.
Right.
All right. Any final shout outs, Conrad, you need to give? We did a little bit of a quick episode. We wanted to get something out to you guys because it's been a hot minute. We've been having some internet issues over the last couple of weeks, so we finally got some information out. Any information, upcoming Tiga tactics courses, seminars, plugs, etc.
Yeah, so we're heading into the holiday season here, and we're going to have some really cool Black Friday sale as well as a Cyber Monday sale as well too on our courses. Uh, please check your emails, and you'll get updates on that. We're doing some deep discounts, some things we've never discounted to this degree before, and so please keep an eye on that as well as our 2025 schedules coming together. So please keep your eye on that as well too. I know I am forgetting something. Patrick would just yell at me because I'm just not good at this. But hey, enjoy your holidays, everyone. Enjoy your loved ones. Hope you have a wonderful holiday season too.
And make sure you check out. I'll throw in one you forgot. The EDC pen course is now live, so I would
Yes.
check that out. I just finished it up about a week or two ago, so enjoyed that. Not only gives you the basics on using a pen for self protection, but then also I like how it also came with a little more like advanced drills. Like, oh, if you have a partner, here's a couple of drills you can do that kind of build attributes for essentially close in fighting with like a small object like a palm stick, a pen, flashlight, etc. So, but it was a great course. Good job as always.
Thank
So
you.
check out that pen course. Again, check out my book, Run If You Can, Destroy If You Must. It's available on Amazon. Tia Tactics Runners, Walker, and Hiker's Guide to Self Protection, or Self Defense, rather. It's on digital and hard copy. Please check that out. And then if you want a little more various random martial arts thoughts and some videos, my Patreon page, patreon.com/Greek Combatives. Again, all those links will be down below. It's real low barrier to entry. Just wanted to like keep people who aren't serious about learning out. So I set like essentially a $5-10 price point to get access to so many videos. It's absurd. It's an absurd amount.
Yeah, I'll second that. There's a lot of videos, and now's a great time to jump on. And if you're into binge watching stuff, you can binge watch this now.
Yeah, you can binge watch that. That is a good point. So, all right, Conrad, thanks again for coming on. Thanks for sharing your opinion. And we will see everyone in the next episode.
All right, take care, everybody. Thank you, Evan.